East Malaysia, also known as Sabah, Sarawak and Labuan or Malaysian Borneo, is the part of Malaysia located on the island of Borneo. It consists of the Malaysian states of Sabah, Sarawak, and Federal Territory of Labuan. It lies to the east of Peninsular Malaysia, which is located on the Malay Peninsula. The two are separated by the South China Sea. While East Malaysia is less populated and less developed than West Malaysia, its land mass is larger and it has notably more natural resources, chiefly oil and gas reserves. History. Some parts of present-day East Malaysia, especially the coastal regions, were once part of the thalassocracy of the Sultanate of Brunei. However, most parts of the interior region consisted of independent tribal societies. In 1658, the northern and eastern coasts of Sabah were ceded to the Sultanate of Sula while the west coast of Sabah and most of Sarawak remained part of Brunei. Beginning in the mid-19th century, Sabah and Sarawak became British protectorates, and, in 1946, they became separate British colonies. Federation. Sabah and Sarawak were separate British colonies from Malaya, and did not become part of the Federation of Malaya in 1957. However, each voted to become part of the new Federation of Malaysia along with the Federation of Malaya and Singapore in 1963. Previously, there were efforts to unite Brunei, Sabah, and Sarawak under the North Borneo Federation but that failed after the Brunei Revolt occurred. Sabah and Sarawak retained a higher degree of local government and legislative autonomy than other states in West Malaysia. For example, both states have their own immigration controls, requiring Malaysian citizens from West Malaysia to carry passports or identity cards when visiting East Malaysia. The islands of Labuan Territory once were part of North Borneo in 1946 before becoming a federal territory in Malaysia on 1984. It was used to establish a centre for offshore finance in 1990. Since 2010, there has been some speculation and discussion, at least on the ground level, about the possibility of secession from the Federation of Malaysia because of allegations of resource mishandling, illegal processing of immigrants, etc. Administration. It has been a source of debate whether the states of Sabah and Sarawak joined the Federation of Malaysia as equal partners with Malaya and Singapore or whether they became merely equal partners of the states of Malaya. The consensus seems to be that Sabah and Sarawak are merely states of the Federation with a slightly higher degree of autonomy compared to states in Peninsular Malaysia. For example, the East Malaysian states have separate laws regulating the entry of citizens from other states in Malaysia, whereas, in Peninsular Malaysia, there are no restrictions on interstate travel or migration, including visitors from East Malaysia. There are also separate land laws governing Sabah and Sarawak, as opposed to the National Land Code, which governs Peninsular Malaysia. With regard to the administration of justice, the courts in East Malaysia are part of the federal court system in Malaysia. The Constitution of Malaysia provides that there shall be two high courts of coordinate jurisdiction, the High Court in Malaya and the High Court in Sabah and Sarawak. The current Chief Judge of Sabah and Sarawak is Richard Melanjam from Sabah. His office is the fourth highest in the Malaysian judicial system. Politics. Sarawak, Sabah and Labuan currently holding a total of 57 out of 222 seats in the Malaysian Parliament, with majority of the seats going to the ruling coalition Barisan Nasional ever since the two states hold their first state elections. However, Jeffrey Ketinggan from Sabah, who is vocal of East Malaysian rights, is concerned that the number of seats from East Malaysia is underrepresented in the Malaysian Parliament as compared to the ideal representation of 35% stated in the Cobbold Commission report. After the conclusion of 2013 Malaysian general election, East Malaysia contributed a total of 47 parliamentary seats out of the 133 seats won by the Barisan Nasional coalition following the Barisan dismal performance in Peninsular Malaysia. This has resulted in an increase in ministers and deputy ministers' allocation for East Malaysia in the Malaysian cabinet from 11 out of 57 portfolios in 2008 election to 20 out of 61 after the 2013 election. On the basis that East Malaysia should be treated as equal partner as compared to the Peninsula, local lawmakers has urged the federal government since the year 2011 to appoint at least one deputy prime minister from East Malaysia into the federal cabinet. Political parties in Sarawak and Sabah evolved independently of each other. Party switching and party leadership tussle are common in both the states. Physical geography. The landscape of East Malaysia is mostly lowland rainforests with areas of mountain rainforest towards the interior regions. The total area of East Malaysia is 200,565 kilometers 2, representing approximately 61% of the total land area of Malaysia and 27% of the total area of Borneo. East Malaysia contains the 5 highest mountains in Malaysia, the highest being Mount Kinabalu at 4095 m, which is also the highest mountain in Borneo and the 10th highest mountain peak in Southeast Asia. It also contains the 2 longest rivers in Malaysia, Rajang River and Kinabatangan River. Bangi Island in Sabah and Beetroot Island in Sarawak are the 2 largest islands that are located entirely within Malaysia. The largest island is Borneo, which is shared with Indonesia and Brunei. The second largest island is Sebatik Island, in Sabah, which is shared with Indonesia. Sarawak contains the Mulak Caves within Gunung Mula National Park. Its Sarawak Chamber is the largest known cave chamber in the world. The Gunung Mula National Park was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in November 2000. Sabah's attractions include World Heritage Site Kinabalu Park, and Sipadan Island. Geology. Several oil and gas fields have been discovered offshore, including the Semarang oil field offshore Sabah, the Boronia oil field offshore Sarawak, and the Central Luconia natural gas fields, also offshore Sarawak. The Boronia field is a dormal structural trap between 2 east-west growth faults, which produces from late Miocene sandstones interbedded with siltstones and clays at 2 km depth and 75 m of water. The Semarang field produces from late Miocene sandstones in an alternating sequence of sandstones, siltstones and clays in an anticline at a depth of about 3 km in water 9 45 m. The Central Luconia gas fields produce from middle to late Miocene carbonate platform and pinnacle reefs from 1.25 to 3.76 km deep and water depth 60-100 m. Population. The total population of East Malaysia in 2010 was 5.77 million, which represents 20.4% of the population of Malaysia. A significant part of the population of East Malaysia today reside in towns and cities. The largest city and urban centre is Kuching, which is also the capital of Sarawak and has a population of over 600,000 people. Kota Kinabalu is the second largest, and one of the most important cities in East Malaysia. Kuching, Kota Kinabalu, and Miri are the only 3 places with city status in East Malaysia. Other important towns include Sandakan and Tawai in Sabah, Sibu and Bintulu in Sarawak, and Victoria in Labuan. The earliest inhabitants of East Malaysia are the Dayak people and other related ethnic groups such as the Dusun people. These indigenous people form a significant portion, but not the majority, of the population. For hundreds of years, there has been significant migration into East Malaysia and Borneo from many parts of the Malay archipelago, including Java, the Lesser Sunda Islands, Sulawesi, and Sula. More recently, there has been immigration from India and China. The indigenous inhabitants were originally animists. Islamic influence began as early as the 15th century, while Christian influence started in the 19th century. The indigenous inhabitants are generally partisan and maintain culturally distinct dialects of the Malay language, in addition to their own ethnic languages. Approximately 13% of the population of Sabah, and 26% of the population of Sarawak, is composed of ethnic Chinese Malaysians. However, the demographics of Sabah has been altered dramatically with the alleged implementation of Project IC in the 1990s. Citizenships are alleged to be granted to immigrants of Indonesia and Philippines in order to keep the UMNO ruling party in power. Royal Commission of Inquiry has been conducted from August 11, 2012 to September 20, 2013. The outcome of the investigation was submitted to the Prime Minister on May 19, 2014. The report was released on December 3, 2014 after 6 months' delay. It is stated that Project IC may have existed which is responsible for the sudden spike in the state population. However, the report did not pinpoint anyone who is responsible except for corrupt officials, who was taking advantage of the system. Education. East Malaysia currently has 2 public universities, namely University Malaysia Sarawak and University Malaysia Sabah. University Technology Mara also has branch campuses in both states. Labuan's own institution of higher education is University Malaysia Sabah Labuan International Campus, a branch of University Malaysia Sabah in Sepongah Bay, Kota Kinabalu. Labuan also has a matriculation college, College Matrikulasi Labuan, the only matriculation college in East Malaysia. Thus, all pre-university students from Sabah, Sarawak, and Labuan must take their courses there. UCSI University, Sarawak Campus, Tunku Abdul Rahman University College, International University College of Technology Twintech, and Open University Malaysia have local private university branch campuses in East Malaysia. Curtin University Sarawak and Swinburne University of Technology Sarawak Campus are foreign university branch campuses in Sarawak. There are 4 teacher training colleges in Sarawak, namely Maktab Perguruan Batu Lintang, Maktab Perguruan Rejang, Maktab Perguruan Sains Bintulu, and Maktab Perguruan Sarawak. There are also 4 teacher training colleges in Sabah, namely Maktab Perguruan Kent, Maktab Perguruan Gaya, Maktab Perguruan Keninggal, and Maktab Perguruan Tawai. Transport. The Pan-Borneo Highway connects Sabah, Sarawak, and Brunei. The road has been poorly maintained since it was built. The narrow road is dark at night without any street lights and there are many danger spots, sharp bends, blind spots, potholes, and erosion. However, federal government funds have been allocated for the upgrade of the highway, which will be carried out in stages until completion in 2025. The major airports in East Malaysia are Kuching International Airport, Labuan International Airport and Kota Kinabalu International Airport. There are frequent air flights by carriers including Malaysia Airlines and AirAsia between East Malaysia and Peninsular Malaysia. Other ports of entry to East Malaysia include Sibu Airport, Bintulu Airport, and Miri Airport in Sarawak, Sandakan Airport and Tawai Airport in Sabah. MAS also operates international flights to major cities in East Malaysia. The rural areas in Borneo can only be accessed by air or river boat. River transport is especially prevalent in Sarawak because there are many large and long rivers, with Rejang River being the most used. Rivers are used by boats and ferries for communications and passenger transport between inland areas and coastal towns. Timber is also transported via vessels and log carriers down the rivers of Sarawak. The Labuan Ferry operates boat express and vehicle ferries from Labuan Island to Sabah, Sarawak and Brunei. The ferries have overtaken the airport as the chief transportation mode for the island. Security. The state of Sabah has been subjected to attacks by Moro militants since 1950s and attacks intensify in 1985, 2000, 2013 until present. Eastern Sabah Security Zone and Eastern Sabah Security Command was established on March 25, 2013 to tighten security in the region. Since 2014, an 12-hour dusk to dawn curfew has been imposed on 6 Sabah East Coast districts and it is still ongoing. References. External links, Virtual Malaysia The official portal of the Ministry of Tourism, Malaysia. Bibliography, Andrew Harding and James Chin, 50 Years of Malaysia, Federalism Revisited, Cabinet Memorandum. Policy in regard to Malaya and Borneo. Memorandum by the Secretary of State for the Colonies. August 29, 1945, Manila Accord, exchange of notes constituting an agreement relating to the implementation of the Manila Accord of July 31, 1963, Acts of the Parliament of the United Kingdom Malaysia Act 1963, agreement relating to Malaysia between United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Federation of Malaya, North Borneo, Sarawak and Singapore,